Is it Catholic to affirm that the functions of Incubi and Succubi belong indifferently and equally to all unclean spirits? And it seems that it is so, for to affirm the opposite would be to maintain that there is some good order among them. It is argued that just as in the computation of the good there are degrees and orders, so also the computation of the evil is based upon confusion. But as among the good angels nothing can be without order, so among the bad all is disorder, and therefore they all indifferently follow these practices. A land of darkness as darkness itself, and of the shadow of death, without any order, and where the light is as darkness. Again, if they do not all indifferently follow these practices, this quality in them comes either from their nature, or from sin, or from punishment. But it does not come from their nature, since they are all without distinction given to sin, as was set out in the preceding question. For they are by nature impure spirits, yet not so unclean as to pejorate their good parts, subtle in wickedness, eager to do harm, swollen with pride, etc. Therefore these practices in them are due either to sin or to punishment. Then again, where the sin is greater, there is the punishment greater. And the higher angels sin more greatly, therefore their punishment they have the more to follow these filthy practices. If this is not so, another reason will be given why they do not indifferently practice these things. And again, it is argued that where there is no discipline or obedience, they all work without distinction, and it is submitted that there is no discipline or obedience among devils, and no agreement. Among the proud there is always contention. Again, just as because of sin they will all equally be cast into hell after the day of judgment, so before that time they are detained in the lower midst on account of the duties assigned to them. We do not read that there is equality on account of emancipation. Therefore neither is there equality in the matter of duty and temptation. But against this there is the first glossed on 1 Corinthians. As long as the world endures, angels are set over angels, men over men, and devils over devils. Also in Job XL, it speaks of the scales of Leviathan, which signify the members of the devil, how one cleaves to another. Therefore there is among them diversity both of order and of action. Another question arises, whether or not the devils can be restrained by the good angels from pursuing these foul practices. It must be said that the angels to whose command the adverse influences are subject called powers, as St. Gregory says in St. Augustine. A rebellious and sinful spirit of life is subject to an obedient, pious, and just spirit of life. And those creatures which are more perfect and nearer to God have authority over the others. For the whole order of preference is originally and in the first place in God, and is shared by his creatures according as they approach more nearly to him. Therefore the good angels, who are nearest to God on account of their fruition in him, which the devils lack, have preference over the devils and rule over them. And when it is urged that the devils work much harm without any medium, or that they are not hindered because they are not subject to good angels who might prevent them, or that if they are so subject, then the evil that is done by the subject is due to negligence on the part of the master. And there seems to be some negligence among the good angels. The answer is that the angels are ministers of the divine wisdom. It follows then that, as the divine wisdom permits certain evil to be done by bad angels or men for the sake of the good that he draws therefrom, so also the good angels do not altogether prevent wicked men or devils from doing evil. Answer: it is Catholic to maintain that there is a certain order of interior and exterior actions, and a degree of preference among devils. Hence it follows that certain abominations are committed by the lowest orders, from which the higher orders are precluded on account of the nobility of their natures. and this is generally said to arise from a threefold congruency, and that such things harmonize with their nature, with the divine wisdom, with their own wickedness. But more particularly as touching their nature, it is agreed that from the beginning of creation some were always by nature superior, since they differ among themselves as to form, and no two angels are alike in form. This follows that more general opinion, which also agrees with the words of the philosophers Dionysius, and also lays it down in his 10th chapter on the celestial hierarchy, that in the same order there are 3 separate degrees, and we must agree with this, since they are both immaterial and incorporeal. See also St. Thomas, chapter 2. For sin does not take away their nature, and the devils after the fall did not lose their natural gifts. As has been said before, and the operations of things follow their natural conditions. Therefore, both in nature and in operation, they are various and multiple. This harmonizes also with the divine wisdom, for that which is ordained by God. And since devils were deputed by God for the temptation of men and the punishment of the damned, therefore they work upon men from without by many and various means. It also harmonizes with their own wickedness, for since they are at war with the human race, they fight in an orderly manner, for so they think to do greater harm to men, and so they do, whence it follows that they do not share in an equal manner in their most unspeakable abominations. And this is more specifically proved as follows. For since, as has been said, the operation follows the nature of the thing, it follows also that those whose natures are subordinate must in turn be subordinate to themselves in operation, just as is the case in corporeal matters. For since the lower bodies are by natural ordination below the celestial bodies, and their actions and motions are subject to the actions and motions of the celestial bodies, and since the devils, as has been said, differ among themselves in natural order, therefore they also differ among themselves in their natural actions, both extrinsic and intrinsic, and especially in the performance of the abominations in question, from which it is concluded that since the practice of these abominations is for the most part foreign to the nobility of the angelic nature, so also in human actions the foulest and beastliest acts are to be considered by themselves, and not in relation to the duty of human nature and procreation. Finally, since some are believed to have fallen from every order, it is not unsuitable to maintain that those devils who fell from the lowest choir, and even in that held the lowest rank, are deputed to and perform these and other abominations. Also, it must be carefully noted that, though the scripture speaks of incubi and succubi lusting after women, yet nowhere do we read that the incubi and succubi fell into these vices against nature. We do not speak only of sodomy, but of any other sin whereby the act is wrongfully performed outside the rightful channel. And the very great enormity of such as sin in this way is shown by the fact that all devils equally, of whatsoever order, abominate and think shame to commit such actions. And it seems that the gloss on Ezekiel XIX means this, where it says, I will give thee into the hands of the dwellers in Palestine, that is, devils, who shall blush at your iniquities, meaning vices against nature. And the student will see what should be authoritatively understood concerning devils, for no sin has God so often punished the shameful death of multitudes. Indeed, many say, and it is truly believed, that no one can unimperiled persevere in the practice of such vices beyond the period of the mortal life of Christ, which lasted for 33 years, unless he should be saved by some special grace of the Redeemer. And this is proved by the fact that there have often been ensnared by this vice octogenarians and centenarians who had up to that time ruled their lives according to the discipline of Christ, and, having forsaken him, they have found the very greatest difficulty in obtaining deliverance and in abandoning themselves to such vices. Moreover, the names of the devils indicate what order there is among them, and what office is assigned to each. For though one and the same name, that of devil, is generally used in Scripture because of their various qualities, Yet the scriptures teach that one is set over these filthy actions, just as certain other vices are subject to another. For it is the practice of scripture and of speech to name every unclean spirit diabolus from dia, that is two, and bolus, that is morsel, for he kills two things, the body and the soul. This is in accordance with etymology, although in Greek diabolus means shut in prison, which also is apt, since he is not permitted to do as much harm as he wishes. Or diabolus may mean downflowing, since he flowed down, that is, fell down, both specifically and locally. He is also named demon, that is, cunning over blood, since he thirsts for and procures sin with a threefold knowledge, being powerful in the subtlety of his nature, in his age-long experience, and in the revelation of the good spirits. He is called also Belial, which means without yoke or master, for he can fight against him to whom he should be subject. He is also called Beelzebub, which means Lord of Flies, that is, of the souls of sinners who have left the true faith of Christ. Also Satan, that is the adversary. For your adversary the devil goeth about. Also Behemoth, that is, beast, because he makes men bestial. But the very devil of fornication, and the chief of that abomination, is called Asmodeus, which means the creature of judgment. For because of this kind of sin, a terrible judgment was expected. For because of this kind of sin, a terrible judgment was executed upon Sodom and the four other cities. Similarly, the devil of pride is also called Leviathan, which means their addition, because when Lucifer tempted our first parents, he promised them, out of his pride, the addition of divinity. Concerning him the Lord said through Isaiah, I shall visit upon Leviathan, that old and tortuous serpent, and the devil of avarice and riches is called Mammon, whom also Christ mentions in the gospel. Ye cannot serve God, etc. To the arguments, first, that good can be found without evil, but evil cannot be found without good. For it is poured upon a creature that is good in itself, and therefore the devils, insofar as they have a good nature, were ordained in the course of nature, and for their actions see Job X. Secondly, it can be said that the devils deputed to work are not in hell, but in the lower midst, and they have here an order among themselves, which they will not have in hell, from which it may be said that all order ceased among them, as touching the attainment of blessedness, at that time when they fell irrecoverably from such rank. And it may be said that even in hell there will be among them a gradation of power and of the affliction of punishments, inasmuch as some, and not others, will be deputed to torment the souls. But this gradation will come rather from God than from themselves, as will also their torments. Thirdly, when it is said that the higher devils, because they sin the more, are the more punished, and must therefore be the more bound to the commission of these filthy acts, it is answered that the sin bears relation to punishment, and not to the act or operation of nature, and therefore it is by reason of their nobility of nature that these are not given to such filthiness, and it has nothing to do with their sin or punishment. And though they are all impure spirits, and eager to do harm, yet one is more so than another, in proportion as their natures are the further thrust into darkness. Fourthly, it is said that there is agreement among devils, but of wickedness rather than friendship, and that they hate mankind, and strive their utmost against justice. For such agreement is found among the wicked, that they band themselves together, and depute those whose talents seems suitable to the pursuit of particular iniquities. Fifthly, although imprisonment is equally decreed for all, now in the lower atmosphere and afterwards in hell, yet not therefore are equal penalties and duties equally ordained for them. For the nobler they are in nature and the more potent in office, the heavier is the torment to which they are subjected. The powerful shall powerfully suffer torments.
Just saying I'm the man. Facts, bro. Lot of haters. Tell me where they